It's been exactly 1 year since India went into a lockdown. A lot has changed in the last year. Some of these will be lasting changes, but some things might come back to normal in a post-vaccine world. To discuss all this and more, we have a very special guest on Money Control, GV Ravishankar, the Managing Director of Sequoia Capital India. GV, thank you very much for joining us on Money Control. GV, of course, is one of India's most respected, prominent investors, is invested in the likes of Byju's, Wildcraft, Wakefit, Five Star Finance, the list goes on. Thank you very much, GV, for joining us on Money Control. And congratulations, you recently completed 15 years at Sequoia. So it's been quite a journey from REC Trichy to software to management to McKinsey to Sequoia. So congratulations on clocking that milestone.
Thank you, Chandran. Thanks for having me on this episode. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a year, and what a year it's turned out to be.
Yeah. Do you remember what you were doing on March 24th, 2020, at around 8 p.m. when Prime Minister Modi said, "Okay, in 4 hours, the entire country is going to go into a lockdown." What was running through your mind? What were you doing in the subsequent days?
Yeah, great question. Now, some things you want to forget. Maybe this one's one of them. Because, quite honestly, the news of the lockdown or the impending lockdown was, on maybe a week or 10 days before as well, right? Like there were rumors swirling around saying something's going to happen. So it was not about the 24th or the 8 p.m. It was really the few weeks before that, because we had this huge change that was coming upon us. And it was clear to all of us that the world was going into a difficult time where mobility was going to be impeded, and the healthcare was going to come into prominence because of what we were seeing all around us. So few things, first things first, of course, family. So you want to make sure that the family is all right across wherever people are. And then when it came to work, first things we did as a partnership was to huddle up and say, hey, what does this really mean for us as a firm and for companies in the portfolio and its employees? So we started doing a few things. First, we banned travel, at least immediately. And this is not even 24th, we're talking about early part of March. It was very clear to us that it was not safe traveling. So we told employees, look, there's a no travel policy until we clear it up. So we encourage people to kind of, not travel. And second, we went to work from home pretty quickly, even before the lockdowns, and said, look, let's not take any chances. And we want the employees to be safe and their families to be safe. So we did that. We quickly also figured out that there will be some things that will be in short supply if there were to be an unfortunate, infection in for any of our employees. So we started kind of trying to figure out if we can get oxygen supplies as backup. At those times, it felt like oxygen was going to be the miracle thing that would help people if they ever, contracted, COVID and so on. So we tried to do that across our offices, just got oxygen cylinders backup. Then, we started focusing on the portfolio. We again went into a huddle. We looked at the full list of companies that may be close to not having enough capital because this was business as usual until February. And then suddenly in March, it was a big disruption coming. And so what did it mean for the portfolio? So we sat down with a list and said, hey, these are companies that have less than 6 months of cash runway. And so how do we help them in case we were to have a significant impact on business? And then, with that list, kind of sensitizing the founders, saying, hey, this is a time to be careful. And you obviously would have read the note that Sequoia US put out, and that was timely advised to just warn all that there was one event. Yeah. And so we use that, to kind of talk to our founders to say, hey, look, we are expecting this to be, not as good. So let's not assume this is something which is a 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks situation. Assume that things are going to be disrupted longer. So how do we need to manage if you have to survive for the next year and a half or 2 years without significant incremental capital? Let's do the right things.
GV, the Sequoia memo last year, the Black Swan event, the famous memo, it actually came out on March 5th, weeks before the lockdown. So in a sense, you already knew what was coming, that, this is not a normal event. And interestingly, Sequoia published another memo last week, which seems very optimistic. The essence of the memo almost seems like carpe diem, seize the moment. There is a window of opportunity. You can hit the accelerator and basically seize the moment, but be prepared for volatility. So how would you really interpret this memo for Indian entrepreneurs, Indian companies in your portfolio? How should they seize the moment?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and you're right. I think we've had the benefit as Sequoia to be present in three different geographies. We're in the US, we're in China, which was of course the center of the action in the beginning, and in India, and Southeast Asia through the India business. So in a way, we are kind of seeing the world through different geographies and what's going on in those geographies. So much like what you mentioned, the India lockdown happened on 24th, but like we had this memo out earlier, and even weeks before that we were having discussions on what it means, because China business was feeding us information on what's going on in their geography, and in a way what to expect, and then US started seeing numbers, and then later India. So we knew we had to act, and first of course we spoke internally, and then later we put out something for our portfolio to see, and similarly now, right, 1 year in, you're seeing that look, life has gotten a lot more normal than before. A lot of the defensive steps one took going into that sharp turn that is mentioned in this memo, right? You also know that look, this is the time to get out of the turn, because it is truly turning, and at that turn you want to start accelerating and not wait for the turn to fully be done before you start accelerating, because the people that accelerate will get ahead. So as much as it's an early warning sign when we did the March 5th memo, it's similarly a early kind of call it an opportunity sign to say, hey, we are seeing that the world will be a better place, with the caveats that look, we are seeing in India, there's probably a second mini wave. Hopefully it's a mini wave and not like a huge wave like we saw last time, or there are still uncertainties, right? So we should be aware of that, and we should be conscious. We should be keeping our ears open and to the ground to see what else you're seeing as signals. But from all that we can see across the world, businesses have come back quite nicely. There are still some segments like travel which can't come back to normalcy, but we see this as a reset opportunity, like you pointed out, right? And it's interesting. I was speaking to one of the founders, and he said, and he was not the number one company in the space. There was a global competitor, and he said, look, but everybody went to zero, right, for a few months. So that large global competitor was not any more larger than me. We were both equal, just both of us were zero. But that meant that so both are now level. So suddenly you got this opportunity where life has given you a chance to be equal with your largest competitor, and then from here on you have equal chance to accelerate and see if you can be ahead of those. So there are these beautiful opportunities that got created for some people in some segments when some of these things got fully disrupted, right? So there are pockets of these opportunities that people should take notice of. Look, today capital is available in plenty. You've seen what's happening in the funding environment. There's tons of capital that's come back, given cheap interest rates and so on. And then India as a destination is kind of arrived, because you're starting to see that in the numbers. Due to other geopolitical reasons, maybe more capital is coming to India versus some other countries and so on. So we are sitting as beneficiaries. So as founders, it is a great time to get access to that capital and try to accelerate. So that's what we have to do if we feel like the market is ready for us, and particularly for all digital businesses, which were all beneficiaries of the COVID situation, because people were forced to move and adopt online mechanism far quicker than they would otherwise naturally done. In the context of India, to your question, I would say we should take the right lessons forward from this experience and not fall into the bad habits of the past. What we have found is it's incredibly hard when you have access to a lot of capital to be disciplined about how you spend it, right? So if you were to just think of it as human beings, each of us, salary comes to us, let's say first of every month. What all you would buy or not buy, and what you would do would be very different from your spend patterns in the last week of the same month, right? So when something is in excess, we value that less, and then end up spending it in ways that may not be ideal. When things are tight, then you optimize a lot better. So COVID created this whole tightness in resourcing, in opportunity available, etc., and that allowed us to all tighten our belts and behave a little differently, cut out excesses, focus on efficiencies, and become nimble, and kind of far stronger with less. And coming out of it, we should hopefully take those lessons and not lose them, and then not go back to ways where we make the assumption that capital is going to be available in plenty. It is, but it is not like there won't be another situation where it'll get tighter, right? And it only takes kind of something to happen in the US markets for markets to correct, and then capital to fly away again potentially. So these are things we should be aware of and plan for, and not assume that because the times are good now, they'll be good forever. So we do want to tell people to accelerate, but with caution.
Right. In fact, I was just coming to that, GV. Overall, if you see, there is a lot of exuberance now in the public markets and the private markets. Whether it is irrational or not, we still don't know. But I mean, if you look at the Indian market, for example, a whole host of internet companies are set to go IPO this year, a defining moment. And even if you look at the private markets, there are already 4 to 5 unicorns. We did a story yesterday on how deals are getting closed in 5 minutes and 2 days, and it kind of seems like a scary situation. So, are there fundamentals backing this? How is this different from 2015? Are you personally worried as an investor that perhaps some of this is frothy and there could be pain in the months ahead if the easy money stops flowing, so to speak?
Yeah, let's not make any mistake, right? Let's say this as it is. It is a frothy market, and and capital is available in plenty. Sometimes the best companies get it. Sometimes even companies that would have struggled otherwise are getting it easier in today's market. But this is not 2015. We've come a long way since then. The depth of the market is significant. The quality of the founders is dramatically different, and people have gotten those experiences of how those times were when you just got funded with very limited proof points. And even today some of that will happen, but for the large part at least there is some learning in the ecosystem for us to kind of at least differentiate what is deserving, what is probably less deserving, and so on. But all that said, Chandra, look, this is the nature of markets, right? It will swing up and down. We'll overreact sometimes, but we'll overreact in both directions. So you're probably seeing some overreaction and some exuberance linked to kind of companies today. And that's coming after a time when everybody quit the market, post-COVID, and companies are struggling. So on balance, like on an average basis, things may be okay, but at periods of time we are seeing one way or the other some excesses here. So I do think we are going through one of those exuberant markets. It's a very difficult environment, even though it looks like a great time to be a founder. It's a very difficult environment, both for founders and for investors, because you're not able to kind of understand what all this interest means, or what all this desire means. Because when you go raise capital at potentially crazy prices, let's say, right, you're also kind of trying to figure out how to keep the short-term motivations are great because everybody feels good, but there will also be a time when things will not look as good. Then you're carrying the burden and the pressure of what you signed up for. So I think the more mature founders understand this now. Now nobody's going to say no to capital coming at a high price if you're a founder. Look, if that's the decision of the market, it's the decision of the market. All that you have to know is, look, let's not get that into our heads, and let's ensure that, look, there is still a long way to go to deliver on the promises that we are making to the ecosystem, to the investors, to your stakeholders, etc. And do the right thing, focus on the right thing. So the thing that we keep telling founders is, look, it's great we have access to capital, but let's use it in the right way, right? And let's not kind of go back to some of the old habits. Don't you lose the economic shape you've created through COVID. You've created a phenomenal economic shape where you've cut the excesses, focused on the right things, right sized, kind of focused on the more material investments that you need to make, etc. Let's not, I mean, you will have to lose on things a little bit for growth, but let's not go all the way to the other side saying, at any cost I will grow, and at any burn rate, I'll be fine, etc. Because that, again, the environment could change and you'd find yourself swimming naked in the ocean, right? So this is the thing that we are kind of emphasizing. It is tough. It is tough when the world around you behaves in a certain way to be very different. Your competitors may do something irrational. You may have to kind of respond to that, and you may not always have the choice to not respond. But that said, I think some of these, kind of disruptions are good, because back in your mind, you will know that, look, you've gone through those tough times, and that will help, calibrate your own decisions as you think about, going fully for growth.
Right. You've articulated what many people are talking about. One investor we spoke to yesterday for the story said, we're trying very hard not to do stupid things. So, it's really hard to resist temptation in such an environment. Everybody else sees value in a startup. We are unable to see it. We are even unable to understand how our companies are raising follow-on rounds because we don't believe they deserve the money at this point. So how do you retain sanity in such an environment, GV? I mean, both from an investor and from a founder's perspective.
Yeah, look, maybe I'm a little bit in these things a little more philosophical. Look, the price a company price tag being put on a company should never be taken personally by the founders, right? It doesn't mean, just because, like, just to give you a simple example, we go through all the time. When the companies go public, they're worth X. People feel great, founders feel great. 1 week later, it's down 20%. Are you 20%, more stupid because of that, or 20% less self-worthy because of that? That's not the case, right? So we attach too much meaning to valuation. I think the right thing is to kind of think about the long term and keep saying, look, am I doing all the things that will make this business enduring business in the long term? And I think really that's what counts. As long as you can be focused on that and not get distracted by the price tag. It's a game that's being played, right? This is all Mr. Market. It'll be up and down at various points. Just because prices went down doesn't mean you're worse off, or it went up, doesn't mean you're a hero. Either way, I think that some detachment is helpful, and I think some people will be able to detach themselves. Not everybody can. It is a tough thing to do, but it is the right thing to do. You focus not on the valuation, but fundamentally creating value, and these two are different things.
Right. Jeevan, while we wrap, I just also wanted to understand, Sequoia last July announced a new 1.35 billion fund to invest in India, Southeast Asia, of which 825 million was a growth fund. So again, where are you kind of deploying this money? What are the next big bets for you in a post-COVID and a post-vaccine world in terms of what is going to win big time?
Yeah, lots of opportunities opened up. Like I mentioned before, this whole acceleration of digital adoption is a big theme. And what that means is, sectors that were not being as much impacted by technology, or that didn't leverage technology to the hilt, are now starting to do that. We've seen things like EdTech take off. Health tech will be a big theme that's gotten enabled, and more adoption of technology will happen, even with doctors and practitioners and so on. Similarly, agriculture is a huge area where we are seeing technology can make a tremendous impact, and we do believe that will be another large area that we could get access to in terms of investment opportunities. And the kind of the other thing that I would talk about is, look, world has become more flat. Is the right word. World has become flatter versus before, and it is a interesting thought to say that, look, in a work from home type environment globally, right? What is the meaning of being close to the market anymore, right? And if you thought about that a little bit, then you could argue that anybody sitting anywhere can attack any market potentially, or any opportunity potentially anywhere in the world. And that just opens up a whole lot of things. I would expect the next 10 years to kind of show us that India can have global consumer companies, right? Consumer companies meaning it could be global direct-to-consumer brands. It could be global direct-to-consumer education companies. It could be global travel companies. Where the headquarters is located may be irrelevant in the scheme of things.
A final couple of questions, G.V. Coming back to growth investment, you mentioned how things are a little frothy. One needs to be careful, and that we don't make the same mistakes as last time. So, are you also being a little more cautious in the way you approach investments now, or the sectors that you're looking at? How has that changed? Because there is a lot of gunpowder, so to speak. People keep talking about it, but are you more cautious now?
Yeah, we'd like to think we are cautious, but we've been active, which doesn't seem to go well together. So here's the interesting thing, Chandra. Like when we look at investments from 2015, right? Some of our very best investments happened in that period. Baidu was invested in that period, and there are a few more. My memory is not great. So but there's lots of, as we look back and look at the learnings, right? We've discussed this many times within Sequoia, saying, hey, okay, markets are hot. Should we just be careful, right? And then we remind ourselves that companies are not waiting for you, right? Like it's not like in a
especially in the current environment.
Yeah, they're certainly not waiting for you. But even the starting and movement of companies and how they grow, etc. It's a natural course of events, right? And you can choose to not participate in a year, but you're also choosing to not invest in the once in a decade type companies that are taking off in that period. So that's why I said it's a very difficult environment to be either a founder or even being an investor, because it's very hard in this kind of momentum to not be a part of it, but at the same time, it's incredibly hard to be a part of it and know that you're making some mistakes in the process. But our business is not about acts of commission. We can make mistakes. It's about acts of omissions, which are more expensive. Which means if you're not in those once in a decade companies, then that is going to hurt you a lot more than making a mistake, by investing in something at a higher price. So net, what we're telling ourselves is, look, we will continue to have a lean-in mindset, but raise the bar on the quality of the opportunity for us to feel like, look, we are anyway taking this risk and anyway probably paying a price that is reflective of today's market conditions. But let's do so for those companies that can be meaningful companies of the next decade, right? And so that's really the, kind of, you try and increase the bar and ask yourselves that tough question saying, hey, is this going to be one of those companies that show up in the top 3 in your portfolio? If the answer is yes, then you lean forward despite the frothiness. If the answer is no, then you step back and think about it a little bit more carefully.
Right. As Jeff Bezos said, you don't regret what you tried, but what you didn't try. So acts of omission, so to speak. But as we approach the end of the interview, since we are talking about 1 year since the lockdown, a lot of people, shared their lockdown learnings, new habits, new things that they tried or picked up during the lockdown. Is there something like that you would like to share, something that you perhaps, began in 2020 and which you've sustained through 2020, 2021, which has perhaps become a permanent habit?
Well, I mean, I started reading and writing, I'd say very late in my life, if I were to admit.
Your columns were superb, and I hope you are going to write for Money Control soon as well.
No, I'd love to, and this is one of the changes that I hope is permanent, that I read and share, and hopefully it is helpful to people. And if it can have any impact, and if I can touch a few lives in some form and be useful to them, I think it's a very high leverage way to spend time, which I really want to continue and do, assuming people still like what I write. So we'll see.
Hopefully you will turn those writings into a book someday. But on that note, thank you very much, G.V. Ravi Shankar, for talking to Money Control and sharing your insights. 1 year, since the lockdown, what has changed and what will change, what potential this holds for India going forward. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chandra. Thanks so much.